enlisted in the Army Air Corps in August 1941. Then later I worked in the air traffic control for 2 years. With the encouragement of my boss, I applied for pilot training school. Well, now, I never finished high school. I thought I had a pretty slim chance. But, as fate would have it, I breezed through a battery of tests that were required for fighter pilots. Later, I sat in front of a board of 5 officers. 2 West Pointers that did not want me to get in, and 2 that were for me getting in. Those 2 line officers. See, I realized then that I could not only be a good pilot, but that I could be one of the best fighter pilots that the Army Air Corps had. And that's just what I told that senior board member. Just happened to have that tie-breaking vote. I got in. So after completing my training, I was off to Europe. For the next 7 months, I was a second lieutenant. I flew P-47s with the 368th Fighter Group, and I was 23 years old. Then, my 27th mission, I was shot down just outside of Neuwied, Germany. I landed in the water. After struggling with my parachute for a while, I began making my way to shore. Some of the locals saw me. They started shooting at me. Dodging bullets, I finally made it to land. And there I was repeatedly kicked and beaten and stomped upon, and then made to march 12, I don't know, maybe 15 days to Mossberg, which is the closest prisoner of war camp. I spent the next 7 months in captivity. My family was notified that I had been shot down and that I was killed in action. Of course, a couple weeks later, they were notified that no, I had been shot down, but I was in fact alive. I was in captivity. So during those 7 months of my imprisonment, food was pretty scarce. I mean, I remember that most. Well, that and the freezing temperature. I mean, we didn't have much good to eat, and what they did give us once a day, there wasn't very much of it. We slept outside on snowbanks and up inside culverts in temperatures way below 0. Fortunately, a buddy of mine had taught me how to knit. So I took one of those chocolate bars that the Red Cross gave us, and I traded that for half of a sweater. And out of that sweater, I made a hat, and scarf, and mittens, and socks. Wasn't so bad. Of course, we lost a lot of men during that time. Really, besides the extreme hunger and the freeze and wet, life in a POW camp pretty much took on the familiar hum of any old military unit. The highest ranking officer took charge. He formed committees focused on mostly escape and intelligence, and of course survival. Then, April 29, 1945, General Patton's armies charged in and overran the camp, liberating me and about 8,000 other American POWs. I was down to a mere 112 pounds. But we were all transported with all the released POWs to Camp Lucky Strike in France. There, we were all stripped of our tattered clothing, sprayed with disinfectant, and given them one set of clothing. Of course, that was a wool shirt with wool pants, and it was already warm by then. But they put us on a cargo boat for the 18-day trip back home. When I arrived at Fort McPherson, Georgia, I was given $50. And I was told that when my pay was figured out for them back 7 months, I would get my check, minus taxes. Ridiculous. We didn't get a very nice welcome when we came home. Of course, the Army Air Corps really had no use for fighter pilots then. The war was over. Since I had such a love for aircraft, I went down to the local recruiting station and I did what I did 4 years beforehand. I enlisted. For the the next 17 years, I worked in air traffic control, and eventually I retired. Now, many years later, I went to my hometown in Tennessee, and I visited a WW2 memorial. Boy, was I surprised when my name was listed on the wall as killed in action. So I called the local paper, and I told them the story, and they came down, and they took my picture, and they printed it in the paper the next day. And underneath the caption said, "Hey, I ain't dead yet." So, you know, everybody I've talked to keeps telling me that I should write a book and tell the story of my life, but I didn't think that many people would be interested in it. They talked me into it. So this is how I like to tell my story. I was shot at and missed. I was shot at and hit. I was shot up, I was shot at and shot down. I was burned, beat, stumped, starved, and froze. All in the process of being shot down, captured by civilians, and my time in the POW camp. I did all this because I am a patriot, because I love my country. And I did it so that you might enjoy the freedom that you have. And I would do it all over again today, if necessary. Oh, by the way, that book, the title, hey, I ain't dead yet.